नमस्कार, वेलकम टू मेटाफिजिकल भारत। आज इस वीडियो में हम लोग बात करेंगे काफ़ी एक इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक दैट इज कॉल्ड परिणामा चित्त एंड कुथस्थ चित्त। ये पतंजलि योग सूत्र में है एंड काफ़ी सारी इंडियन टेक्स्ट में है। अल्टीमेटली मन और मनस, चित्त, बुद्धि, अहंकार, ये सारे डोमेन है अपना जो एंटायर कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ माइंड एंड कॉन्शियसनेस। तो आज इस वीडियो में इसमें थोड़ा हम लोग गहन बात करेंगे, जानेंगे परिणामा चित्ता और कुतस्थ चित्ता क्या होता है। Now there's one doctrine called Satkarayavada which actually talks about that is effect is already there in the cause, and there are two more doctrine. One is called the Parinamavada, which is changing or Rupantaran, and another is called Vivartavada, which is coming from the Advaita Vedanta, because nothing as such changes, everything is eternal. So that is the concept. Now let us understand this from the domain of the mind, and this has a lot of perspective in our day-to-day life with respect to stress, and how do you manage stress and how do you really maintain your own life, because ultimately the Advaita Vedanta is talking that Sarva Khalu Idam Brahman, everything is Brahman, and ultimately we have the Jivatma, and the Insan or humanity is one of the species that can travel or traverse the path from Jivatma to the Paramatma. But is it possible? Or it is just a theoretical proposition? So how do you, the question that always intrigues me whenever I study Advaita Vedanta is that how do I experience Brahman here and now? एंड जीते जीते कैसे ब्रह्मन को कैसे एक्सपीरियंस करे, कैसे उसको उपलब्धि कैसे करे, एंड हाउ दैट कैन एक्चुअली अफेक्ट योर डे टू डे लाइफ. सो परिणामा चित्ता इज बेसिकली द चित्ता विच इज फ्लिकरिंग, विच इज चेंजिंग, विच इज ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग, and which is oscillating, which is vacillating, and it is not static. And we go above, we go down, we are never static, and things happens and things keeps on changing. And accordingly, we are getting surveyed by a lot of mental stress and a lot of mental issues. Whereas the concept of the Kuthastha Chaitanya or the Kuthastha Citta basically talks about something which is unwavering, non-flickering, something which is static, and that is a particular state that we are trying to achieve. And how do you achieve that? So of course that is something which has to be gained over a period of time, and it is a matter of an intellectual rigor, that is the Jnana Yoga, and also it is a matter of meditation and a bhakti. And once we have that kind of an intellectual rigor to remove all the ignorance, then you understand that what is the Sat and what is the reality. That is one. That is basically an intellectual discernment of understanding what is real and what is unreal. Asutama Sadgamaya. That is one. And another is to what extent you are able to get into a state where we are able to have the witnessing approach. And once we have this witnessing approach, then we'll be able to actually experience the Brahman here and now. It is not then and there. It is not something that I'm going to experience in after my death. No. It is something that I can experience here and now. It is very imminent. But how do I do it? Because we are not born with a mental manual. But definitely the manual exists in terms of ancient literature, be it Bhagavad Gita, be it Upanishads, or be it any other Indian text or any other text that actually gets into the very realm of it. So all the Upanishads, ultimately they're talking about that the Atman is equal to the Brahman, and it is Aham Brahmasmi. So how do you experience the Kuthastha Chaitanya? And Kuthastha Chaitanya is something which is a blissful state. Now, if you really understand this from the modern neurological perspective, we have something called the default mode network, where we tend to get into a substratum or a kind of a realm where you're always in a state of hurry and worry. So in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, slok number 26 says that yatha yatha nischalati manas asthiram chanchalam tathostata tathostata niyamitat atmana iva vasam nayat. So basically it is a very succinct slok which is very apt for the topic that we are discussing. It says that jab the mind is getting into asthiram and chanchalam, tap tap, through discipline, we need to really bring the mind back to control so that the mind is into the steady state. So that means it is basically talking about that it is the very nature of the human mind to get deflected and to flicker and to oscillate. But it is an intellectual rigor to pull back the mind, tathos tata, nyamitad, atmana eva vasam nayat. So tap tap, jab the mind is jumping like a monkey, tap tap, we need to really pull the mind back to the state. And once we do it, then this is something called a meta-awareness. And once we are into this meta-awareness, we are actually functioning from a deeper realm where the Kuthastha Chaitanya, Kuta is basically the portion here. We are trying to concentrate here. Otherwise, it is always changing. Anything, we all know that anything we want to achieve the highest form of excellence, it happens because of concentration. It happens because of steadiness of mind. It happens because we are having a one-pointed focus. But too much of a Parinama Citta will always deflect us. It is always flicker us. It is always oscillate us. So the question is, I know that I'm getting having an oscillation. I know that I'm getting deflected. And once I know that I'm getting deflected, then that is a meta-awareness. And once I know I'm a meta-awareness, there's a pause. There's a breaking of that particular mental chatter. I believe that one of the best things that any human being can achieve to understand that Kuthastha Chaitanya is to really achieve the state of peacefulness and the bliss, and having that meta-awareness that my mind is getting deflected. And once my mind is getting deflected, I need to get into the state of reflection and bring the mind back. And that makes a lot of changes in the way I am able to deliver my own happenings on a day-to-day basis. And that will bring a lot of change in our system, in our own physiological system and in our mind system. Because we have manas, the mind field, and the ahamkara, which is aham is I-ness and kara is actually the root. And this ahamkara has actually popped out of the very base, which is basically talking about the consciousness state. Now, what exactly is consciousness is very difficult to define, but ultimately the mind is always fluctuating. The mind is always going up and down. So it is a kind of an anushashan. It is kind of a discipline. And it is Citta, Vritti, Nirodha. Citta is basically the mind or the mind field. Vritti is the fluctuation and Nirodha is the stoppage. So I believe that to a large extent, this Kuthastha Chaitanya is a blissful state, unwavering state, unoscillating state. Can I be in that particular state? And for that, of course, there is a process. So it is the breathing. So how do you control your thought? So it is basically breathing. I'm not getting into the meditation, which is, of course, the progressive state that one can actually get into and one should get into through abhyasa and of course, through a discipline and anushasana. But I believe the best thing by which one can control one mind is through breathing. So can we take a deep breath, that is inhale and then exhale to start with? And then once you concentrate on your breathing, and you can count the breathing in and then out and then in and then out. And of course, one has to hold, then again one has to release. There's a process for that also. We'll be covering those in our subsequent videos. But I believe a very strong association of the mind and the breathing is concerned. And once we are able to have a control and have getting concentration on in our breathing process, we'll find that mind will also automatically takes its own shape. I think one of the achievement in human life or in your present life, especially for the students or anybody who's into higher realm of understanding the consciousness, because we're not just the body, we're also the mind, you're also the emotion, and you're also the soul. But how do you connect and how do you get the glimpses of your soul? And the one way to get the glimpses of your soul is to come from the Parinama Citta to the Kuthastha Citta. And that happens once you're able to stop the mental chatter. And once you stop the mental chatter, you're able to really experience that kind of a blissfulness here and now. And that will bring a lot of stability in our life, in day-to-day life. And thanks for watching. Do subscribe to my video, do watch my video, do comment on my video. That will be a great motivation for me. And I have dedicated my life to spread the message of the Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. Om Tat Sat. Namaste.